came to Abimelech. And Abimelech said to Abraham, Behold, I have given orders that thou shalt be honored as thou desirest, on account of thy sister Sarah. And Abraham went forth from the king, and the king's present followed him. As at evening time before men lie down to rest, the king was sitting upon his throne, and a deep sleep fell upon him, and he lay upon the throne and slept till morning. And he dreamed that an angel of the Lord came to him with a drawn sword in his hand, and the angel stood over Abimelech, and wished to slay him with the sword. And the king was terrified in his dream, and said to the angel, In what have I sinned against thee, that thou comest to slay me with thy sword? Return that man his wife, for she is his wife. And shouldst thou not return her, know that thou wilt surely die, thou and all belonging to thee. And on that night there was a great outcry in the land of the Philistines. And the inhabitants of the land saw the figure of a man standing with a drawn sword in his hand, and he smote the inhabitants of the land with the sword. Yea, he continued to smite them. And the angel of the Lord smote the whole land of the Philistines on that night, and there was a great confusion on that night and on the following morning. And every womb was closed, and all their issues, and the hand of the Lord was upon them on account of Sarah, wife of Abraham, whom Abimelech had taken. And in the morning Abimelech rose with terror and confusion and with a great dread. And he sent and had his servants called in, and he related his dream to them, and the people were greatly afraid. And one man standing amongst the servants of the king answered the king, saying, O sovereign king, restore this woman to her husband, for he is her husband. For the like happened to the king of Egypt when this man came to Egypt. And he said concerning his wife, She is my sister, for such is his manner of doing when he cometh to dwell in the land in which he is a stranger. And Pharaoh sent and took this woman for a wife, and the Lord brought upon him grievous plagues until he returned the woman to her husband. Now therefore, O sovereign king, know what happened yesternight to the whole land, for there was a very great consternation, and great pain and lamentation, and we know that this was on account of the woman which thou didst take. Now therefore restore this woman to her husband, lest it should befall us as it did to Pharaoh king of Egypt and his subjects, and that we may not die. And Abimelech hastened and called and had Sarah called for, and she came before him. And he had Abraham called for, and he came before him. And Abimelech said to them, What is this work you've been doing in saying you are brother and sister? And I took this woman for a wife. And Abraham said, Because I thought I should suffer death on account of my wife. And Abimelech took flocks and herds, and men servants and maid servants, and 1,000 pieces of silver, and he gave them to Abraham, and he returned Sarah to him. And Abimelech said to Abraham, Behold, the whole land is before thee. Dwell in it wherever thou shalt choose. And Abraham and Sarah his wife went forth from the king's presence with honor and respect, and they dwelt in the land, even in Gerar. And all the inhabitants of the land of the Philistines and the king's servants were still in pain, through the plague which the angel had inflicted upon them the whole night on account of Sarah. And Abimelech sent for Abraham, saying, Pray now for thy servants to the Lord thy God, that he may put away this mortality from amongst us. And Abraham prayed on account of Abimelech and his subjects. And the Lord heard the prayer of Abraham, and he healed Abimelech and all his subjects. Chapter 21. And it was at that time, at the end of a year and 4 months of Abraham's dwelling in the land of the Philistines, in Gerar, that God visited Sarah, and the Lord remembered her, and she conceived and bare a son to Abraham. And Abraham called the name of the son which was born to him, which Sarah bare to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac at 8 days old, as God had commanded Abraham to do unto his seed after him. And Abraham was 100 and Sarah 90 years old when Isaac was born to them. And the child grew up, and he was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast upon the day that Isaac was weaned. And Shem and Eber and all the great people of the land, and Abimelech, king of the Philistines, and his servants, and Phicol, the captain of his host, came to eat and drink and rejoice at the feast which Abraham made upon the day of his son Isaac's being weaned. Also Terah, the father of Abraham, and Nahor his brother came from Haran, they and all belonging to them, for they greatly rejoiced on hearing that a son had been born to Sarah. And they came to Abraham, and they ate and drank at the feast which Abraham made upon the day of Isaac's being weaned. And Terah and Nahor rejoiced with Abraham, and they remained with him many days in the land of the Philistines. At that time Serug the son of Ru died, in the first year of the birth of Isaac, 139 years, and he died. And Ishmael the son of Abraham was grown up in those days, 139 years, and he died. And Ishmael the son of Abraham was grown up in those days. He was 14 years old when Sarah bare Isaac to Abraham. And God was with Ishmael the son of Abraham, and he grew up. And he learned the use of the bow and became an archer. And when Isaac was 5 years old, he was sitting with Ishmael at the door of the tent. And Ishmael came to Isaac and seated himself opposite to him. And he took the bow and drew it, and put the arrow in it, and intended to slay Isaac. And Sarah saw the act which Ishmael desired to do to her son Isaac, and it grieved her exceedingly on account of her son. And she sent for Abraham and said to him, Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for her son shall not be heir with my son, for thus did he seek to do unto him this day. And Abraham hearkened to the voice of Sarah, and he rose up early in the morning, and he took 12 loaves and a bottle of water which he gave to Hagar, and sent her away with her son. And Hagar went with her son to the wilderness. And they dwelt in the wilderness of Paran with the inhabitants of the wilderness. And Ishmael was an archer, and he dwelt in the wilderness a long time. And he and his mother afterward went to the land of Egypt, and they dwelt there. And Hagar took a wife for her son from Egypt, and her name was Meribah. And the wife of Ishmael conceived and bare 4 sons and 2 daughters. And Ishmael and his mother and his wife and children afterward went and returned to the wilderness. And they made themselves tents in the wilderness in which they dwelt. And they continued to travel and then to rest in which they dwelt. And they continued to travel and then to rest monthly and yearly. And God gave Ishmael flocks and herds and tents on account of Abraham his father, and the man increased in cattle. And Ishmael dwelt in deserts and in tents, traveling and resting for a long time, and he did not see the face of his father. And in some time after, Abraham said to Sarah his wife, I will go and see my son Ishmael, for I have a desire to see him, for I have not seen him for a long time. And Abraham rode upon one of his camels to the wilderness to seek his son Ishmael, for he heard that he was dwelling in a tent in the wilderness with all belonging to him. And Abraham went to the wilderness, and he reached the tent of Ishmael about noon. And he asked after Ishmael. And he found the wife of Ishmael sitting in the tent with her children, and Ishmael her husband and his mother were not with them. And Abraham asked the wife of Ishmael, saying, Where has Ishmael gone? And she said, He has gone to the field to hunt. And Abraham was still mounted upon the camel, for he would not get off to the ground, as he had sworn to his wife Sarah that he would not get off from the camel. And Abraham said to Ishmael's wife, My daughter, give me a little water that I may drink, for I am fatigued from the journey. And Ishmael's wife answered and said to Abraham, We have neither water nor bread. And she continued sitting in the tent and did not notice Abraham, neither did she ask him who he was. But she was beating her children in the tent, and she was cursing them. And she also cursed her husband Ishmael, and reproached him. And Abraham heard the words of Ishmael's wife to her children, and he was very angry and displeased. And Abraham called to the woman to come out to him from the tent, and the woman came and stood opposite to Abraham, for Abraham was still mounted upon the camel. And Abraham said to Ishmael's wife, When thy husband Ishmael returneth home, say these words to him. A very old man from the land of the Philistines came hither to seek thee. And thus was his appearance and figure. I did not ask him who he was, and seeing thou wast not here, he spoke unto me and said, When Ishmael thy husband returneth, tell him, thus did the man say, When thou comest home, put away this nail of the tent which thou hast placed here, and place another nail in its stead. And Abraham finished his instructions to the woman, and he returned and went off on the camel homeward. And after that Ishmael came from the chase, he and his mother, and returned to the tent, and his wife spoke these words to him. A very old man from the land of the Philistines came to seek thee, and thus was his appearance and figure. I did not ask him who he was, and seeing thou wast not, Ishmael hearkened to the voice of his father. And Ishmael cast off that woman, and she went away. And Ishmael afterward went to the land of Canaan, and he took another wife, and he brought her to his tent, to the place where he then dwelt. And at the end of 3 years Abraham said, I will go again and see Ishmael my son, for I have not camel, and went to the wilderness, and he reached the tent of Ishmael about noon. And he asked after Ishmael, and his wife came out of the tent, and she said, He is not here, my lord, for he has gone to hunt in the fields, and to feed the camels. And the woman said to Abraham, Turn in, my lord, into the tent, and eat a morsel of bread, for thy soul must be wearied on account of the journey. And Abraham said to her, I will not stop, for I am in haste to continue my journey, but give me a little water to drink, for I have thirst. And the woman hastened and ran into the tent, and she brought out water and bread to Abraham, which she placed before him, and she urged him to eat. And he ate and drank, and his heart was comforted, and he blessed his son Ishmael. And he finished his meal, and he blessed the Lord, and he said to Ishmael's wife, When Ishmael cometh home, say these words to him. A very old man from the land of the Philistines came hither, and asked after thee, and thou wast not here. And I brought him out bread, and asked after thee, and thou wast not here. And I brought him out bread and water, and he ate and drank, and his heart was comforted. And he spoke these words to me, When Ishmael thy husband cometh home, say unto him, The nail of the tent which thou hast is very good, do not put it away from the tent. And Abraham finished commanding the woman, and he rode off to his home to the land of the Philistines. And when Ishmael came to his tent, his wife went forth to meet him with joy and a cheerful heart. And she said to him, An old man came here from the land of the Philistines, and thus was his appearance. And he asked after thee, and thou wast not here. So I brought out bread and water, and he ate and drank, and his heart was comforted. And he spoke these words to me, When Ishmael thy husband cometh home, say to him, The nail of the tent which thou hast is very good, do not put it away from the tent. And Ishmael knew that it was his father, and that his wife had honored him, and the Lord blessed Ishmael. Chapter 22. And Ishmael then rose up and took his wife and his children, and his cattle and all belonging to him, and he journeyed from there, and he went to his father in the land of the Philistines. And Abraham related to Ishmael his son the transaction with the first wife that Ishmael took, according to what she did. And Ishmael and his children dwelt with Abraham many days in that land. And Abraham dwelt in the land of the Philistines a long time. And the days increased and reached 26 years, and after that Abraham with his servants and all belonging to him went from the land of the Philistines, and removed to a great distance. And they came near to Hebron, and they remained there, and the servants of Abraham dug wells of water, and Abraham and all belonging to him dwelt by the water. And the servants of Abimelech king of the Philistines heard the report that Abraham's servants had dug wells of water in the borders of the land. And they came and quarreled with the servants of Abraham, and they robbed him of the great well which they had dug. And Abimelech king of the Philistines heard of this affair, and he with Phicol the captain of his host, and 20 of his men came to Abraham. And Abimelech spoke to Abraham concerning his servants. And Abraham rebuked Abimelech concerning the well of which his servants had robbed him. And Abimelech said to Abraham, As the Lord liveth, who created the whole earth, I did not hear of the act which my servants did unto thy servants until this day. And Abraham took 7 ewe lambs and gave them to Abimelech, saying, Take these, I pray thee, from my hands, that it may be a testimony for me that I dug this well. And Abimelech took the 7 ewe lambs which Abraham had given to him, for he had also given him cattle and herds in abundance. And Abimelech swore to Abraham concerning the well. Therefore he called that well Beersheba, for there they both swore concerning it. And they both made a covenant in Beersheba. And Abimelech rose up with Phicol the captain of his host and all his men, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. And Abraham and all belonging to him dwelt in Beersheba, and he was in that land a long time. And Abraham planted a large grove in Beersheba, and he made to it 4 gates facing the 4 sides of the earth, and he planted a vineyard in it, so that if a traveler came to Abraham, he entered any gate which was in his road, and remained there, and ate and drank, and satisfied himself, and then departed. For the house of Abraham was always open to the sons of men that passed and repassed, who came daily to eat and drink in the house of Abraham. And any man who had hunger and came to Abraham's house, Abraham would give him bread that he might eat and drink and be satisfied. And anyone that came naked to his house he would clothe, with garments as he might choose, and give him silver and gold, and make known to him the Lord who had created him in the earth. Thus did Abraham all his life. And Abraham and his children and all belonging to him dwelt in Beersheba, and he pitched his tent as far as Hebron. And Abraham's brother Nahor and his father and all belonging to them dwelt in Haran, for they did not come with Abraham to the land of Canaan. And children were born to Nahor, which Milcah the daughter of Haran, and sister to Sarah, Abraham's wife, bare to him. And these are the names of those that were born to him: Uz, Buz, Kemuel, Kesed, Chazo, Pildash, Tidlaph, and Bethuel, being 8 sons. These are the children of Milcah which she bare to. And the sons of Yidlaph were Mushan, Cushan, and Mutzi. And the children of Bethuel were Sakhar, Laban, and their sister Rebekah. These are the families of the children of Nahor that were born to them in Haran. And Aram the son of Kemuel and Rechab his brother went away from Haran, and they found a valley in the land by the river Euphrates. And they built a city there, and they called the name of the city after the name of Pethor the son of Aram, that is, Aram Naharaim, unto this day. And the children of Kesed also went to dwell where they could find a place. And they went, and they found a valley opposite to the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they there built themselves a city, and they called the name of the city Kesed, after the name of their father, that is, the land of Kasdim, unto this day. After the name of their father, that is, the land of Kasdim, unto this day. And the Kasdim dwelt in that land, and they were fruitful and multiplied exceedingly. Bare him a son, and he called his name Zobah. And Terah lived 25 years after he begot Zobah. And Terah died in that year that was in the 35th year of the birth of Isaac, son of Abraham. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and he was buried in Haran. And Zobah, the son of Terah, lived 30 years, and he begot Aram, Achlis, and Merik. And Aram, son of Zobah, son of Terah, had 3 wives, and he begot 12 sons and 3 daughters. And the Lord gave to Aram, the son of Zobah, riches and possessions, and abundance of cattle, and flocks and herds, and the man increased greatly. And Aram, the son of Zobah, and his brother, and all his household journeyed from Haran, and they went to dwell where they should find a place, for their property was too great to remain in Haran. And Abraham his father taught him the way of the Lord, to know the Lord, and the Lord was with him. And when Isaac was 37 years old, Ishmael his brother was going about with him in the tent. And Ishmael boasted of himself to Isaac, saying, I was 13 years old when the Lord spoke to my father to circumcise us, and I did according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke to my father. And I gave my soul unto the Lord, and I did not transgress his word which he commanded my father. And Isaac answered Ishmael, saying, Why dost thou boast to me about this? About a little bit of thy flesh, which thou didst take from thy body, concerning which the Lord commanded thee. As the Lord liveth, the God of my father Abraham, if the Lord should say unto my father, Take now thy son Isaac, and bring him up an offering before me, I would not refrain, but I would joyfully accede to it. And the Lord heard the word that Isaac spoke to Ishmael, and it seemed good in the sight of the Lord, and he thought to try Abraham in this matter. And the day arrived when the sons of God came and placed themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with the sons of God before the Lord. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? And Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And the Lord said to Satan, What is thy word to me concerning all the children of the earth? And Satan answered the Lord and said, What is thy word to me concerning all the children of the earth? And Satan answered the Lord and said, I have seen all the children, thus considered my servant Abraham. For there is none like him upon the earth, a perfect and an upright man before me, one that feareth God and avoideth evil. As I live, were I to say unto him, Bring up Isaac thy son before me, he would not withhold him from me, much more if I told him to bring up a burnt offering before me from his flocks or herds. And Satan answered the Lord and said, Speak then now unto Abraham as thou hast said, and thou wilt see whether he will not this day transgress and cast aside thy words. Chapter 23. At that time the word of the Lord came to Abraham, and he said unto him, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And he said to him, Take now thy son, thine only son, whom thou lovest, even Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon the mountains which shall be shown to thee. For there wilt thou see a cloud and the glory of the Lord. And Abraham said within himself, How shall I separate my son Isaac from Sarah his mother, in order to bring him up for a burnt offering before the Lord? And Abraham came into the tent, and he sat before Sarah, him up for a burnt offering before the Lord. And Abraham came into the tent, and he sat before Sarah his wife, and he spoke these words to her. My son Isaac is grown up, and he has not for some time studied the service of his God. Now tomorrow I will go and bring him to Shem, and Eber his son, and there he will learn the ways of the Lord, for they will teach him to know the Lord, as well as to know that when he prayeth continually before the Lord, he will answer him. Therefore there he will know the way of serving the Lord his God. And Sarah said, Thou hast spoken well. Go, my lord, and do unto him as thou hast said. But remove him not at a great distance from me, neither let him remain there too long, for my soul is bound within his soul. And Abraham said unto Sarah, My daughter, let us pray to the Lord our God that he may do good with us. And Sarah took her son Isaac, and he abided all night with her. And she kissed and embraced him, and gave him instructions till morning. And she said to him, O my son, how can my soul separate itself from thee? And she still kissed him and embraced him, and she gave Abraham instructions concerning him. And Sarah said to Abraham, O my lord, I pray thee, take heed of thy son, and place thine eyes over him, for I have no other son nor daughter but him. For I have no other son nor daughter but him. O forsake him not. If he be hungry, give him bread, and if he be thirsty, give him water to drink. Do not let him go on foot, neither let him sit in the sun. Neither let him go by himself in the road, neither force him from whatever he may desire, but do unto him as he may say to thee. And Sarah wept bitterly the whole night on account of Isaac, and she gave him instructions till morning. And in the morning Sarah selected a very fine and beautiful garment from those garments which she had in the house that Abimelech had given to her. And she dressed Isaac her son therewith, and she put a turban upon his head, and she enclosed a precious stone in the top of the turban. And she gave them provision for the road, and they went forth. And Isaac went with his father Abraham, and some of their servants accompanied them to see them off the road. And Sarah went out with them, and she accompanied them upon the road to see them off. And they said to her, Return to the tent. And when Sarah heard the words of her son Isaac, she wept bitterly. And Abraham her husband wept with her, and their son wept with them a great weeping. Also those who went with them wept greatly. And Sarah caught hold of her son Isaac, and she held him in her arms. And she embraced him and continued to weep with him. And Sarah said, Who knoweth if after this day I shall ever see thee again? And they still wept together. Abraham, Sarah, and Isaac, and all those that accompanied them on the road wept with them. And Sarah afterward turned away from her son, weeping bitterly, and all her men servants and maidservants returned with her to the tent. And Abraham went with Isaac his son to bring him up as an offering before the Lord, as he had commanded him. And Abraham took 2 of his young men with him, Ishmael the son of Hagar, and Eleazar his servant, and they went together with them. And whilst they were walking in the road, the young men spoke these words to themselves. And Ishmael said to Eleazar, Now my father Abraham is going with Isaac to bring him up for a burnt offering to the Lord, as he commanded him. Now when he returneth, he will give unto me all that he possesseth, to inherit after him, for I am his firstborn. And Eleazar answered Ishmael and said, Surely Abraham did cast thee away with thy mother, and swear that thou shouldst not inherit anything of all he possesses. And to whom will he give all that he has, with all his treasures, but unto me his servant, who has been faithful in his house, who has served all his treasures, but unto me his servant, who has been faithful in his house, who has served him night and day, and has done all that he desired me. To me will he bequeath at his death all that he possesses. And whilst Abraham was proceeding with his son Isaac along the road, Satan came and appeared to Abraham in the figure of a very aged man, humble and of contrite spirit. And he approached Abraham and said to him, Art thou silly or brutish that thou goest to do this thing this day to thine only son? For God gave thee a son in thy latter days, in thy old age, and wilt thou go and slaughter him this day because he committed no violence? And wilt thou cause the soul of thine only son to perish from the earth? Dost thou not know and understand that this thing cannot be from the Lord? For the Lord cannot do unto man such evil upon earth, to say to him, Go slaughter thy child. And Abraham heard this, and knew that it was the word of Satan, who endeavored to draw him aside from the way of the Lord. But Abraham would not hearken to the voice of Satan, and Abraham rebuked him so that he went away. And Satan returned and came to Isaac, and he appeared unto Isaac in the figure of a young man, comely and well-favored. And he approached Isaac and said unto him, Dost thou not know and understand that thy old silly father bringeth thee to the slaughter this day for naught? Now therefore, my son, do not listen nor attend to him, for he is a silly old man, and let not thy precious soul and beautiful figure be lost from the earth. And Isaac heard this, and said unto Abraham, Hast thou heard, my father, that which this man has spoken? Even thus has he spoken. And Abraham answered his son Isaac, and said to him, Take heed of him, and do not listen to his words, nor attend to him, for he is Satan, endeavoring to draw us aside this day from the commands of God. And Abraham still rebuked Satan, and Satan went from them. And seeing he could not prevail over them, he hid himself from them, and he went and passed before them in the road. And he transformed himself to a large brook of water in the road. And Abraham and Isaac and his powerful as the mighty waters. And they entered the brook and passed through it, and the waters at first reached their legs. And they went deeper in the brook, and the waters reached up to their necks. And the waters at first reached their legs. And they went deeper in the brook, and the waters reached up to their necks. And they were all terrified on account of the water. And whilst they were going over the brook, Abraham recognized that place, and he knew that there was no water there before. And Abraham said to his son Isaac, I know this place in which there was no brook nor water. Now therefore it is this Satan who does all this to us, to draw us aside this day from the commands of God. And Abraham rebuked him, and said unto him, The Lord rebuke thee, O Satan, be gone from us, for we go by the commands of God. And Satan was terrified at the voice of Abraham, and he went away from them, and the place again became dry land as it was at first. And Abraham went with Isaac toward the place that God had told him. And on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place at a distance which God had told him of. And a pillar of fire appeared to him that reached from the earth to heaven, and a cloud of glory upon the mountain, and the glory of the Lord was seen in the cloud. And Abraham said to Isaac, My son, dost thou see in that mountain which we perceive at a distance that which I see upon it? And Isaac answered and said unto his father, I see, and lo, a pillar of fire and a cloud, and the glory of the Lord is seen upon the cloud. And Abraham knew that his son Isaac was accepted before the Lord for a burnt offering. And Abraham said unto Eleazar and unto Ishmael his son, Do you also see that which we see upon? And she asked concerning her son. And she remained there whilst she sent some of her servants to seek where Abraham had gone with Isaac. They went to seek him in the house of Shem and Eber, and they could not find him. And they sought throughout the land, and he was not there. And behold, Satan came to Sarah in the shape of an old man, and he came and stood before her. And he said unto her, I spoke falsely unto thee, for Abraham did not kill his son, and he is not dead. And when she heard the word, her joy was so exceedingly violent on account of her son, that her soul went out through joy. She died and was gathered to her people. And when Abraham had finished his service, he returned with his son Isaac to his young men. And they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and they came home. And Abraham sought for Sarah and could not find her. And he made inquiries concerning her, and they said unto him, She went as far as Hebron to seek you both where you had gone, for thus was she informed. And Abraham and Isaac went to her to Hebron. And when they found that she was dead, they lifted up their voices and wept bitterly over her. And Isaac fell upon his mother's face and wept over her. And he said, O my mother, how hast thou left me, and where hast thou gone? O how hast thou left me? And Abraham and Isaac wept greatly, and all their servants wept with them on account of Sarah, and they mourned over her a great and heavy mourning. Chapter 24. And the life of Sarah was 127 years, and Sarah died. And Abraham rose up from before his dead to seek a burial place to bury his wife Sarah. And he went and spoke to the children of Heth, the inhabitants of the land, saying, I am a stranger and a sojourner with you in your land. Give me a possession of a burial place in your land, that I may bury my dead from before me. And the children of Heth said unto Abraham, Behold, the land is before thee. In the choice of our sepulchres bury thy dead, for no man shall withhold thee from burying thy dead. And Abraham said unto them, Bury thy dead, for no man shall withhold thee from burying thy dead. And Abraham said unto them, If you are agreeable, purchase it of him for whatever he desire for it. And Ephraim dwelt among the children of Heth, and they went and called for him, and he came before Abraham. And Ephraim said unto Abraham, Behold, all thou requirest thy servant will do. And Abraham said, No, but I will buy the cave and the field which thou hast for value, in order that it may be for a possession of a burial place forever. And Ephraim answered and said, Behold, the field and the cave are before thee. Give whatever thou desirest. And Abraham said, Only at full value will I buy it from thy hand, and from the hands of those that go in at the gate of thy city, and from the hand of thy seed forever. And Ephron and all his brethren heard this. And Abraham weighed to Ephraim 400 shekels of silver in the hands of Ephron, and in the hands of all his brethren. And Abraham wrote this transaction, and he wrote it and testified it with 4 witnesses. And these are the names of the witnesses: Amigal, son of Abishna, the Hittite; Adakoram, son of Ashanok, the Hivite; Abdon, son of Akram, the Gomerite; Bagdil, son of Abudish, the Zidonite. And Abraham took the book of the purchase and placed it in his treasures. And these are the words that Abraham wrote in the book, namely, that the cave and the field Abraham bought from Ephron the Hittite, and from his seed, and from those that go out of his city, and from their seed forever, are to be a purchase to those that go out of his city, and from their seed forever are to be a purchase to Abraham, and to his seed, and to those that go forth from his loins, for a possession of a burial place forever. And he put a signet to it, and testified it with witnesses. And the field and the cave that was in it, and all that place were made sure unto Abraham, and unto his seed after him, from the children of Heth. Behold, it is before Mamre in Hebron, which is in the land of Canaan. And after this Abraham buried his wife Sarah there, and all the grandees of the land followed her bier. And the days of Sarah were 127 years, and she died. And Abraham made a great and heavy mourning, and he performed the rites of mourning for 7 days. And all the inhabitants of the land comforted Abraham and Isaac his son on account of Sarah. And when the days of their mourning passed by, Abraham sent away his son Isaac, and he went to the house of Shem and Eber to learn the ways of the Lord and his instructions. And Abraham remained there 3 years. At that time Abraham rose up with all his servants, and they went and returned homeward to Beersheba. And Abraham and all his servants remained in Beersheba. And at the revolution of the year, Abimelech the king of the Philistines died in that year. He was 193 years old at his death. And Abraham went with his people to the land of the Philistines, and they comforted the whole household and all his servants. And he then turned and went home. And it was after the death of Abimelech that the people of Gerar took Ben-Malach his son, and he was only 12 years old, and they made him king in the place of his father. And they called his name Abimelech, after the name of his father, for thus was it their custom to do in Gerar. And Abimelech reigned instead of Abimelech, his father, and he sat upon his throne to do in Gerar. And Abimelech reigned instead of Abimelech, his father, and he sat upon his throne. And Lot the son Haran also died in those days, in the 39th year of the life of Isaac. And all the days that Lot lived were 140 years, and he died. And these are the children of Lot that were born to him by his daughters. The name of the firstborn was Moab, and the name of the second was Ben-Ammi. And the two sons of Lot went and took themselves wives from the land of Canaan 2 years, and he died and was buried in Haran. And when Abraham heard that his brother was dead, he grieved sadly, and he mourned over his brother many days. And Abraham called for Eliezer his head servant to give him orders concerning his house, and he came and stood before him. And Abraham said to him, Behold, I am old. I do not know the day of my death, for I am advanced in days. Now therefore rise up, go forth, and do not take a wife for my son from this place and from this land, from the daughters of the Canaanites amongst whom we dwell. But go to my land and to my birthplace, and take from thence a wife for my son. And the Lord God of heaven and earth, who took me from my father's house and brought me to this place, and said unto me, To thy seed will I give this land for an inheritance forever, he will send his angel before thee and prosper thy way, that thou mayest obtain a wife for my son from my family and from my father's house. And the servant answered his master Abraham and said, Behold, I go to thy birthplace and to thy father's house, and take a wife for thy son from there. But if the woman be not willing to follow me to this land, shall I take thy son back to the land of thy birthplace? And Abraham said unto him, Take heed that thou bring not my son hither again, for the Lord before whom I have walked, he will send his angel before thee and prosper thy way. And Eliezer did as Abraham ordered him. And Eliezer swore unto Abraham his master upon this matter. And Eliezer rose up and took 10 camels of the camels of his master, and 10 men from his master's servants with him. And they rose up and went to Haran, the city of Abraham and Nahor, in order to fetch a wife for Isaac the son of Abraham. And whilst they were gone, Abraham sent to the house of Shem and Eber, and they brought from thence his son Isaac, servant Abraham. And he happened to meet with the daughter of Bethuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, brother to Abraham, and Eliezer came to her house. And Eliezer related to them all his concerns, and that he was Abraham's servant, and they greatly rejoiced at him. And they all blessed the Lord who brought this thing about, and they gave him Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, for a wife for Isaac. And the young woman was of very comely appearance. She was a virgin, and Rebekah was 10 years old in those days. And Bethuel and Laban and his children made a feast on that night, and Eliezer and his men came and ate and drank and rejoiced there on that night. And Eliezer rose up in the morning, he and the men that were with him, and he called to the whole household of Bethuel, saying, Send me away that I may go to my master. And they rose up and sent away Rebekah and her nurse Deborah, the daughter of Uz, and they gave her silver and gold. men servants and maidservants, and they blessed her. And they sent Eliezer away with his men, and the servants took Rebekah, and he went and returned to his master to the land of Canaan. And Isaac took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he brought her into the tent. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of his uncle Bethuel, for a wife. Chapter 25. And it was at that time that Abraham again took a wife in his old age, and her name was Keturah from the land of Canaan. And she bare unto him Zimrah, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Yishbak, and Shuach, being 6 sons. And the children of Zemran were Abihan, Malik, and Merim. And the sons of Yokshan were Sheba and Dedan. And the sons of Medan were Amida, Joab, Gochi, Elisha, and Nothach. And the sons of Midian were Ephah, Epher, Chanok, Abida, which she bare unto Abraham the Hebrew. And Abraham sent all these away, and he gave them gifts, and they went away from his son Isaac to dwell wherever they should find a place. And all these went to the mountain at the east, and they built themselves 6 cities in which they dwelt unto this day. But the children of Sheba and Dedan, children of Yokshan with their children, did not dwell with their brethren in their cities, and they journeyed and encamped in the countries and wildernesses unto this day. And the children of Midian, son of Abraham, went to the east of the land of Cush, and they there found a large valley in the eastern country, and they remained there, and built a city, and they dwelt therein. That is the land of Midian unto this day. And Midian dwelt in the city which he built, he and his 5 sons, and all belonging to him. And these are the names of the sons of Midian according to their names in their cities: Ephah, Epher, Chanok, Abida, and Eldah. And the sons of Ephah were Methach, Mishar, Avi, and Zanuah. And the sons of Epher were Ephron, Zur, Eliron, and Medan. And the sons of Chanok were Ruel, Rechem, Azi, Elioshub, and Alad. And the sons of Abida were Chur, Melud, Karui, Mokri. And the sons of Eldah were Micah, and Reba, and Melchiah, and Gabal. These are the names of the Midianites according to their families. And afterward the families of Midian spread throughout the land of Midian. And these are the generations of Ishmael the son of Abraham, whom Hagar, Sarah, her name was Malkuth. And she bare unto him Nishma, Duma, Masa, Shaddad, Tima, Yeter, Naphish, and Kedma. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names, being 12 princes according to their nations. And the families of Ishmael afterward spread forth, and Ishmael took his children and all the property that he had gained, together with the souls of his household, and all belonging to him, and they went to dwell where they should find a place. And they went and dwelt near the wilderness of Paran, and their dwelling was from Havilah unto Shur, that is before Egypt, as thou comest toward Assyria. And Ishmael and his sons dwelt in the land, and they had children born to them, and they were fruitful and increased abundantly. And these are the names of the sons of Nebaioth, the firstborn of Ishmael: Mend, Send, and Man. And the sons of Kedar were Elayan, Kizem, Shamad, and Eli. And the sons of Adbeel were Chamad and Jabin. And the sons of Mibsam were Obadiah, Abedmelech, and Eush. These are the families of the children of Reba, the wife of Ishmael. And the sons of Mishma, the son of Ishmael, were Shammua, Zacharian, and Obed. And the sons of Duma were Kazed, Eli, Machmad, and Ahmed. And the sons of Masa were Milan, Mula, and Ebedidan. And the sons of Chedad were Azar, Minzar, and Ebedmelech. And the sons of Tema were Seir, Sidon, and Yakol. And the sons of Yaish, Aljo, and Pakoth. And the sons of Maphish were Ebed-Tamed, Abiasaph, and Mir. And the sons of Kedma were Kalib, Takti, and Omer. These were the children of Malkuth, the wife of Ishmael, according to their families. All these are the families of Ishmael according to their generations, and they dwelt in those lands wherein they had built themselves cities unto this day. And Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the wife of Abraham's son Isaac, was barren in those days, and she had no offspring. And Isaac dwelt with his father in the land of Canaan. And the Lord was with Isaac. And Arpachshad, the son of Shem, the son of Noah, died in those days, in the 48th year of the life of Isaac. And all the days that Arpachshad lived were 438 years, and he died. Chapter 26. And in the 59th year of the life of Isaac, the son of Abraham, Rebekah his wife was still barren in those days. And Rebekah said unto Isaac, Truly I have heard, my lord, that thy mother Sarah was barren in her days until my lord Abraham, thy father, prayed for her, and she conceived by him. Now therefore stand up, pray thou also to God, and he will hear thy prayer and remember us through his mercies. And Isaac answered his wife Rebekah, saying, Abraham has already prayed for me to God to multiply his seed. Now therefore this barrenness must proceed to us from thee. And Rebekah said unto him, But arise now thou also, and pray that the Lord may hear thy prayer and grant me children. And Isaac hearkened to the words of his wife. And Isaac and his wife rose up and went to the land of Moriah to pray there and to seek the Lord. And when they had reached that place, Isaac stood up and prayed to the Lord on account of his wife, because she was barren. And Isaac said, O Lord God of heaven and earth, whose goodness and mercies fill the earth, thou who didst take my father from his father's house and from his birthplace, and didst bring him unto this land, and didst say unto him, To thy seed will I give the land, and thou didst promise him, and didst declare unto him, I will multiply thy seed as the stars of heaven, and as the sand of the sea. Now may thy words be verified, which thou didst speak unto my father. For thou art the Lord our God, our eyes are toward thee to give us seed of men, as thou didst promise us. For thou art the Lord our God, and our eyes are directed toward thee only. And the Lord heard the prayer of Isaac the son of Abraham, and the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And in about 7 months after the children struggled together within her, and it pained her greatly that she was wearied on account of them. And she said to all the women who were then in the land, Did such a thing happen to you as it has to me? And they said unto her, No. And she said unto them, Why am I alone in this amongst all the women that were upon earth? And she went to the land of Moriah to seek the Lord on account of this. And she went to Shem and Eber his son to make inquiries of them in this matter, and that they should seek the Lord in this thing respecting her. And she also asked Abraham to seek and inquire of the Lord about all that had befallen her. And they all inquired of the Lord concerning this matter, and they brought her word from the Lord and told her, 2 children are in thy womb, and 2 nations shall rise from them, and one nation shall be stronger than the other, and the greater shall serve the younger. And when her days to be delivered were completed, she knelt down, and behold, there were twins in her womb, as the Lord had spoken to her. And the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and all the people of the land called his name Esau, saying that this one was made complete from the womb. And after that came his brother, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel. Therefore they called his name Jacob. And Isaac the son of Abraham was 60 years old when he begat them. And the boys grew up to their 15th year, and they came amongst the society of men. Esau was a designing and deceitful man, and an expert hunter in the field. And Jacob was a man perfect and wise, dwelling in tents, feeding flocks, and learning the instructions of the Lord and the commands of his father and mother. Feeding flocks and learning the instructions of the Lord and the commands of his father and mother. And Isaac and the children of his household dwelt with his father Abraham in the land of Canaan, as God had commanded them. And Ishmael the son of Abraham went with his children, and all belonging to them, and they returned there to the land of Havilah, and they dwelt there. And all the children of Abraham's concubines went to dwell in the land of the east, for Abraham asked him, and he said unto me, to thy seed will I give all these lands, and they shall inherit them when they keep my commandments, my statutes, and my judgments, that I have commanded thee, and which I shall command them. Now therefore, my son, hearken to my voice, and keep the commandments of the Lord thy God, which I commanded thee. Do not turn from the right way, either to the right or to the left, in order that it may be well with thee and thy children after thee forever. And remember the wonderful works of the Lord and his kindness that he has shown toward us, in having delivered us from the hands of our enemies. And the Lord our God caused them to fall into our hands. And now therefore keep all that I have commanded thee, and turn not away from the commandments of thy God, and serve none beside him, in order that it may be well with thee and thy seed after thee. And teach thou thy children and thy seed the instruction of the Lord and his commandments, and teach them the upright way in which they should go, in order that it may be well with them forever. And Isaac answered his father and said unto him, That which my Lord has commanded, that will I do, and I will not depart from the commandments of the Lord my God. I will keep all that he commanded me. And Abraham blessed his son Isaac, and also his children. And Abraham taught Jacob the instruction of the Lord and his ways. And it was at that time that Abraham died, in the 15th year of the life of Jacob and Esau the son of Isaac. And all the days of Abraham were 175 years, and he died, and was gathered to his people in good old age, old and satisfied with days. And Isaac and Ishmael his sons buried him. And when the inhabitants of Canaan heard him, and all the inhabitants of the land of Haran, and all the families of the house of Abraham, and all the princes and grandees, and the sons of Abraham by the concubines, all came when they heard of Abraham's death. And they requited Abraham's kindness, and comforted Isaac his son. And they buried Abraham in the cave which he bought from Ephron the Hittite, and his children for the possession of a burial place. And all the inhabitants of Canaan, and all those who had known Abraham, wept for Abraham a whole year, and men and women mourned over him. And all the little children and all the inhabitants of the land, for Abraham had been good to them all, and because he had been upright with God and men. And there arose not a man who feared God like unto Abraham, for he had feared his God from his youth, and had served the Lord, and had gone in all his ways during his life, from his childhood to the day of his death. And the Lord was with him, and delivered him from the counsel of Nimrod and his people. And when he made war with the 4 kings of Elam, he conquered them. And he brought all the children of the earth to the service of God, and he taught them the ways of the Lord, and caused them to know the Lord. And he formed a grove, and he planted a vineyard therein, and he had always prepared in his tent meat and drink to those that passed through the land, that they might satisfy themselves in his house. And the Lord God delivered the whole earth on account of Abraham. And it was after the death of Abraham that God blessed his son Isaac and his children. And the Lord was with Isaac as he had been with his father Abraham, for Isaac kept all the commandments of the Lord, as Abraham his father had commanded him. He did not turn to the right or to the left, commanded him. He did not turn to the right or to the left from the right path which his father had commanded him. Chapter 27. And Esau at that time, after the death of Abraham, frequently went into the field to hunt. And Nimrod, king of Babel, the same was Amraphel, also frequently went with his mighty men to hunt in the field, and to walk about with his men in the cool of the day. And Nimrod was observing Esau all the days, for a jealousy was forming in the heart of Nimrod against Esau all the days. And on a certain day, Esau went into the field to hunt, and he found Nimrod walking in the wilderness with his 2 men. And all his mighty men and his people were with him in the wilderness, but they removed at a distance from him, and they went from him in different directions to hunt. And Esau concealed himself for Nimrod, and he lurked for him in the wilderness. And Nimrod and his men that were with him did not know him, and Nimrod and his men, and to know where his men were hunting in the field. And Nimrod and 2 of his men that were with him came to the place where they were, when Esau started suddenly from his lurking place, and drew his sword, and hastened and ran to Nimrod, and cut off his head. And Esau fought a desperate fight with the 2 men that were with Nimrod. And when they called out to him, Esau turned to them and smote them to death with his sword. And all the mighty men of Nimrod, who had left him to go to the wilderness, heard the cry at a distance, and they knew the voices of those 2 men, and they ran to know the cause of it, when they found their king and the 2 men that were with him lying dead in the wilderness. And when Esau saw the mighty men of Nimrod coming at a distance, he fled, and thereby escaped. And Esau took the valuable garments of Nimrod, which Nimrod's father had bequeathed to Nimrod, and with which Nimrod prevailed over the whole land, and he ran and concealed them in his house. And Esau took those garments and ran into the city on account of Nimrod's men, and he came unto his father's house wearied and exhausted from fight. And he was ready to die through grief when he approached his brother Jacob and sat before him. And he said unto his brother Jacob, Behold, I shall die this day, and wherefore then do I want the birthright? And Jacob acted wisely with Esau in this matter, and Esau sold his birthright to Jacob, for it was so brought about by the Lord. And Esau's portion in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which Abraham had bought from the children of Heth for the possession of a burial ground, Esau also sold to Jacob. And Jacob bought all this from his brother Esau for value given. Was raging in the land of Canaan, Isaac rose up to go down to Egypt on account of the famine, as his father Abraham had done. And the Lord appeared that night to Isaac, and he said to him, Do not go down to Egypt, but rise and go to Gerar, to Abimelech king of the Philistines, and remain there till the famine shall cease. And Isaac rose up and went to Gerar, as the Lord had commanded him, and he remained there a full year. And when Isaac came to Gerar, the people of the land saw that Rebekah his wife was of a beautiful appearance. And the people of Gerar asked Isaac concerning his wife, and he said, She is my sister. For he was afraid to say she was his wife, lest the people of the land should slay him on account of her. And the princes of Abimelech went and praised the woman to the king, but he answered them not, neither did he attend to their words. But he heard them say that Isaac declared her to be his sister. So the king reserved this within himself. And when Isaac had remained 3 months in the land, Abimelech looked out at the window, and he saw, and behold, Isaac was sporting with Rebekah his wife. For Isaac dwelt in the outer house belonging to the king, so that the house of Isaac was opposite the house of the king. And the king said unto Isaac, What is this thou hast done to us, in saying of thy wife, She is my sister? How easily might one of the great men of the people have lain with her, and thou wouldst then have brought us. And Isaac said unto Abimelech, Because I was afraid lest I die on account of my wife. Therefore I said, She is my sister. At that time Abimelech gave orders to all his princes and great men, and they took Isaac and Rebekah his wife, and brought them before the king. And the king commanded that they should dress them in princely garments, and make them ride through the streets of the city, and proclaim before them throughout the land, saying, This is the man, and this is his wife. Whoever toucheth this man or his wife shall surely die. And Isaac returned with his wife to the king. Behold, the whole earth is before thee. Dwell wherever it may seem good in thy sight, until thou shalt return to thy land. And Abimelech gave Isaac fields and vineyards, and the best part of the land of Gerar, to sow and reap, and eat the fruits of the ground, until the days of the famine should have passed by. And Isaac sowed in that land, and received 100-fold in the same year, and the Lord blessed him. And the man waxed great, and he had possession of flocks, and possession of herds, and great store of servants. And when the days of the famine had passed away, the Lord appeared to Isaac, and said unto him, Rise up, go forth from this place, and return to thy land, to the land of Canaan. And Isaac rose up and returned to Hebron, which is in the land of Canaan, he and all belonging to him, as the Lord had commanded him. And after this, Shelah, the son of Arpachshad, died in that year, which is the 18th year of the lives of Jacob and Esau. He learned the instructions of the Lord, And Jacob remained in the house of Shem and Eber for 32 years. And Esau his brother did not go, for he was not willing to go, and he remained in his father's house in the land of Canaan. And Esau was continually hunting in the fields to bring home what he could get. So did Esau all the days. And Esau was a designing and deceitful man, one who hunted after the hearts of men and inveigled them. And Esau was a valiant man in the field, and in the course of time went as usual to hunt. And he came as far as the field of Seir, the same as Edom. And he remained in the land of Seir, hunting in the field 1 year and 4 months. And Esau there saw in the land of Seir the daughter of a man of Canaan, and her name was Jehudith, told at his death. And when Shem died, Jacob returned to his father to Hebron, which is in the land of Canaan. And in the 56th year of the life of Jacob, people came from Haran. And Rebekah was told concerning her brother Laban, the son of Bethuel. For the wife of Laban was barren in those days, and bare no children. And also all his handmaids bare none to him. And the Lord afterward remembered Adinah, the wife of Laban, and she conceived. And the Lord afterward remembered Adinah, the wife of Laban, and she conceived and bare twin daughters. And Laban called the names of his daughters, the name of the elder Leah, and the name of the younger Rachel. And those people came and told these things to Rebekah, and Rebekah rejoiced greatly that the Lord had visited her brother, and that he had got children. Chapter 29. And Isaac the son of Abraham became old and advanced in days, and his eyes became. Chapter 29. And Isaac the son of Abraham became old and advanced in days, and his eyes became heavy through age. They were dim and could not see. At that time Isaac called unto Esau his son, saying, Get, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver, and thy bow. Rise up and go forth into the field, and get me some venison, and make me savory meat, and bring it to me, that I may eat, in order that I may bless thee before my death, as I have now become old and gray-headed. And Esau did so, and he took his weapon and went forth into the field to hunt for venison, as usual, to bring to his father as he had ordered him, so that he might bless him. And Rebekah heard all the words that Isaac had spoken unto Esau, and she hastened and called her son Jacob, saying, Thus did thy father speak unto thy brother Esau. And Isaac rose up, and he ate and he drank, and his heart was comforted. And he blessed Jacob, and Jacob went away from his father. And as soon as Isaac had blessed Jacob, and he had gone away from him, behold, Esau came from his hunt from the field. And he also made savory meat, and brought it to his father to eat thereof, and to bless him. And Isaac said unto Esau, And who is he that has taken venison, and brought it me before thou camest, and whom I did bless? And Esau knew that his brother Jacob had done this, and the anger of Esau was kindled against his brother Jacob, that he acted thus toward him. And Esau said, Is he not rightly called Jacob? For he has supplanted me twice. He took away my birthright, and now he has taken away my blessing. And Esau wept greatly. And when Isaac heard the voice of his son Esau weeping, Isaac said unto Esau, What can I do, my son? Thy brother came with subtlety, and took away my son. Thy brother came with subtlety, and took away thy blessing. And Esau hated his brother Jacob on account of the blessing that his father had given him, and his anger was greatly roused against him. And Jacob was very much afraid of his brother Esau, and he rose up and fled the house of Eber, the son of Shem. And he concealed himself there on account of his brother. And Jacob was 63 years old when he went forth from the land of Canaan, from Hebron. And Jacob was concealed in Eber's house 14 years on account of his brother Esau. And he there continued to learn the ways of the Lord and his commandments. And when Esau saw that Jacob had fled and escaped from him, and that Jacob had cunningly obtained the blessing, then Esau grieved exceedingly. And he was also vexed at his father and mother. And he also rose up and took his wife, and went away from his father and mother to the land of Seir, and he dwelt there. And Esau saw there a woman from amongst the daughters of Heth, whose name was Basmath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, walked not in the ways of the Lord, but served their father's gods of wood and stone, as their father had taught them, and they were more wicked than their father. And they went according to the evil desires of their hearts. And they sacrificed and burnt incense to the Baalim, and Isaac and Rebekah became weary of them. And Rebekah said, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob take a wife of the daughters of Heth, such as these, which are of the daughters of the land, what good then is life unto me? And in those days Adah, the wife of Esau, conceived and bare him a son. And Esau called the name of the son that was born unto him Eliphaz. And Esau was 65 years old when she bare him. And Ishmael, the son of Abraham, died in those days, in the 64th year of the life of Jacob. And all the days that Ishmael lived were 137 years, and he died. And when Isaac heard that Ishmael and he died. And when Isaac heard that Ishmael was dead, he mourned for him, and Isaac lamented over him many days. And at the end of 14 years of Jacob's residing in the house of Eber, Jacob desired to see his father and mother, and Jacob came to the house of his father and mother to Hebron. And Esau had in those days forgotten what Jacob had done to him in having taken the blessing from him in those days. And when Esau saw Jacob coming to his father and mother, he remembered what Jacob had done to him, and he was greatly against him, and he sought to slay him. And Isaac, the son of Abraham, was old and advanced in days, and Esau said, Now my father's time is drawing nigh that he must die, and when he shall die I will slay my brother Jacob. And this was told to Rebekah, and she hastened and sent and called for Jacob her son, and she said unto him, Arise and go, flee to Haran, my brother Laban, and remain there for some time, until thy brother's anger be turned from thee, and then shalt thou come back. I shall command thee, and refrain from taking a wife from amongst the daughters of Canaan. Rise, go to Haran, to the house of Bethuel, thy mother's father, and take unto thee a wife from there, from the daughters of Laban, thy mother's brother. Therefore take heed lest thou shouldst forget the Lord thy God, and all the ways in the land to which thou goest, and shouldst get connected with the people of the land, and pursue vanity, and forsake the Lord thy God. But when thou comest to the land, serve there the Lord. Do not turn to the right or to the left from the way which I commanded thee, and which thou didst learn. And may the Almighty God grant thee favor in the sight of the people of the earth, that thou mayest there take a wife according to thy choice, one who is good and upright in the ways of the Lord. And may God give unto thee and thy seed the blessing of thy father Abraham, and make thee fruitful and multiply thee. And mayest thou become a multitude of people, fruitful and multiply thee. And mayest thou become a multitude of people in the land whither thou goest. And may God cause thee to return to this land, the land of thy father's dwelling, with children and with great riches, with joy and with pleasure. And Isaac finished commanding Jacob and blessing him, and he gave him many gifts, together with silver and gold, and he sent him away. And Jacob hearkened to his father and mother. He kissed them, and arose and went to Paddan Aram. And Jacob was 77 years old when he went out from the land of Canaan, Beersheba. And when Jacob went away to go to Haran, Esau called unto his son Eliphaz, and secretly spoke unto him, saying, Now hasten, take thy sword in thy hand, and pursue Jacob, and pass before him in the road, and lurk for him, and slay him with thy sword in one of the mountains, and take all belonging to him, and come back. And Eliphaz the son of Esau was an active man, and expert with the bow as his father had taught him, and he was a noted hunter in the field, and a valiant man. Know the thing, and with you that you have come hither, and what meaneth it that you pursue with your swords? And Eliphaz came near to Jacob, and he answered and said unto him, Thus did my father command me, and now therefore I will not deviate from the orders which my father gave me. And when Jacob saw that Esau had spoken to Eliphaz to employ force, Jacob then approached and supplicated Eliphaz and his men, saying to him, Behold, all that I have in which my father and mother gave unto me, that take unto thee, and go from me, and do not slay me, and may this thing be accounted unto thee a righteousness. And the Lord caused Jacob to find favor in the sight of Eliphaz the son of Esau, and his men, and they hearkened to the voice of Jacob, and they did not put him to death. And Eliphaz and his men took all belonging to Jacob, together with the silver and gold that he had brought with him from Beersheba. They left him nothing. And Eliphaz and his men went away from him. And they returned to Esau to Beersheba, and they told him all that had occurred to them with Jacob, and they gave him all they had taken from Jacob. And Esau was indignant at Eliphaz his son and at his men that were with him, because they had not put Jacob to death. And they answered and said unto Esau, Because Jacob supplicated us in this matter not to slay him. Our pity was excited toward him, and we took all belonging to him and brought it unto thee. And Esau took all the silver and gold which Eliphaz had taken from Jacob, and he put them by in his house. At that time, when Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob, and had commanded him, saying, Thou shalt not take a wife from amongst the daughters of Canaan, and that the daughters of Canaan were bad in the sight of Isaac and Rebekah, then he went to the house of Ishmael. Chapter 30.
Okay, we're going to stop here. Okay. It's a lot to learn, isn't it? And I love this book. This is actually the full book of Jasher. So you're going to hear things in here that you probably never heard before if you never listened to all 13 hours. So you're going to hear things you never heard before. But there's a reason why the elites use this book to learn about us, because it has so much detail in it that you will not hear in it, that you will not hear in your regular Torah or Bible. And it's easy to understand too. You know, that's the thing I love about the book of Jasher. You would think, okay, you know, because our people were Shanny Cat 73, thank you so much. I saw your super chat in there and I was trying to say thank you, and my keyboard kept freezing up, but I did see it and I want to say thank you. You know, our people were very advanced when they wrote these books. So sometimes it takes, you know, looking things up sometimes to understand what they mean, but it's a good book. And I can't wait until we get to the part where the 12 tribes go into battle and they're undefeated because the Most High is with them, because it really shows us how if we united, the Most High would be with us. Believe me, once we be with us, believe me, once we unite and we have the Most High with us, there is nothing, none of these folks on this planet will be able to do to us. And that's exactly what it's showing us. But you see how Esau killed Nimrod and then stole the garments. Those garments were stolen so many times, it's not even funny. But that's where the power was, ladies and gentlemen. And remember, when we go into the kingdom, we're getting new garments. And guess what we'll be able to do? We will have all those same powers, just like they did through the garments that Nimrod stole, and then Esau stole the garments from him after he slayed Nimrod. And, you know, it's going to get to the part where Jacob kills Esau. So this is why these folks are so over the top crazy when it comes down to us, because they know what our abilities are. And we are really, truly the only people that can wipe them out. But unfortunately, so many of our people are not awake, and they're still in, many of our people are not awake, and they're still in fear of Esau. And there's really nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear. Most High said you fear someone that can kill the soul, not the body. Don't fear anybody that can kill the body. Yes, Shekel Robinson, he sure did. Yeah, well, you know, Francis Watkins, it said at birth, that the younger would be stronger than the older. Esau came out first. Jacob came out second. So yes, we are stronger. We are physically stronger than them. That's why they need a gun. That's why they call it the equalizer, because without that gun, our strength is unmatched. They're the only group on this planet always screaming and hollering over a gun. No other group is doing that except for them, because they're over a gun. No other group is doing that except for them, because they can't hold this planet hostage without the gun. They're holding us, literally holding all of us hostage. And it's because they have a gun. It's left off next week because we got quite a few weeks to get through this one. It's so long, but it is definitely worth listening to. You know, and another one that we'll have to get through is the Book of Jubilees. That's another one that we'll be doing. Hopefully sometime in October, we can get around to the Book of Jubilees. So enjoy the rest of your time in Sabbath. And I will see you again. You know, maybe I'll do another hangout tomorrow, and then we can all just kind of shoot the breeze and talk about a few things. There are a few more people that I want to interview, but I haven't been able to get a hold of them yet. So, you know, once I am able to get a hold of them, then, you know, it should be fun and interesting to interview them real soon. But Shabbat Shalom, family, and enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.
The Book of Jubilees, also known as the Book of Division, 40 days and 40 nights. And the Lord revealed to him both what was in the beginning and what will occur in the future, on the account of the division of all the days of the law and the testimony. And he said, Set your mind on everything which I will tell you on this mountain, and write it in a book, so that their descendants might see that I have not abandoned them on account of all the evil which they have done to instigate transgression of the covenant which I am establishing between me and you today on Mount Sinai for their descendants. And thus it will be, when all of these things happen to them, that they will know that I have been more righteous than they in all their judgments and deeds, and they will know that I have truly been with them. And you, write for yourself all of these words which I shall cause you to know today, for I know their rebelliousness and their stubbornness before I caused them to enter the land which I swore to their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give your seed to a land flowing with milk and honey. And they will eat and be satisfied, and they will turn to strange gods, to those who cannot save them from any of their affliction. And this testimony will be heard as a testimony against them. For they will forget all of my commandments, everything which I shall command them, and they will walk after the Gentiles, and after the defilement and shame. And they shall serve their gods, and they will become a scandal for them, and an affliction, and a torment, and a snare. And many will be destroyed and seized, and will fall into the hand of the enemy, because they have forsaken my ordinances, and my commandments, and the feasts of my covenant, and my Sabbaths, and my sacred place, which I sanctified for myself among them, and my tabernacle and my sanctuary, which I sanctified for myself in the midst of the land, so that I might set up my name upon it, and dwell in there. And they will make for themselves high places and groves and carved idols, and each of them will worship his own idol so as to go astray. And they will sacrifice their children to the demons and to every work of the error of their heart. And I shall send to them witnesses, so that I might witness to them, but they will not hear. And they will even kill the witnesses, and they will persecute those who search out the law, and they will neglect everything, and begin to do evil in my sight. And I shall hide my face from them, and I shall give them over to the power of the nations to be captive, and for plunder, and to be devoured. And I shall remove them from the midst of the land, and I shall scatter them among the nations. And they will forget all my laws, and all my commandments, and all my judgments. And they will err concerning new moons, Sabbaths, festivals, jubilees, and ordinances. And afterwards they will return to me from the nations with all their heart, and with all their soul, and with all their might. And I shall gather them from the midst of all the nations, and they will seek me so that I might be found by them. When they seek me with all their heart and with all their soul, I shall reveal to them an abundance of peace and righteousness. And with all my heart and with all my soul I shall transplant them as a righteous plant, and they shall be a blessing and not a curse, and they will be the head and not the tail. And I shall build my sanctuary in their midst, and I shall dwell with them, and I shall be their God, and they shall be my people, truly and rightly. And I shall not forsake them, and I shall not be alienated from them, because I am the Lord their God. And Moses fell upon his face and prayed, and he said, O Lord my God, do not abandon your people and your inheritance to walk in the error of their heart, and do not deliver them into the hand of their enemy, the Gentiles, lest they rule over them and cause them to sin against you. O Lord, let your mercy be lifted up upon your people, and create for them an upright spirit, and do not let the spirit of Beliar rule over them, to accuse them before you, and to ensnare them from every path of righteousness, so that they might be destroyed from before your face. But they are your people, and your inheritance, whom you saved by your great might from the hand of the Egyptians. Create a pure heart and a holy spirit for them, and do not let them be ensnared by their sin henceforth and forever. And the Lord said to Moses, I know their contrariness and their thoughts and their stubbornness, and they will not obey until they acknowledge their sin and the sins of their fathers. But after this they will return to me in all uprightness, and with all of their heart and soul, and I shall cut off the foreskin of their heart, and the foreskins of their heart of their descendants. And I shall create for them a holy spirit, and I shall purify them, so that they will not turn away from following me from that day and forever. And their souls will cleave to me and to all my commandments, and they will do my commandments, and I shall be a father to them, and they will be sons to me. And they will all be called sons of the living God, and every angel and spirit will know and acknowledge that they are my sons, and I am their father, in uprightness and righteousness, and I shall love them. And you write down for yourself all the matters which I shall make known to you on this mountain, what was in the beginning and what will be at the end, what will happen in all the divisions of the days which are in the law and the testimony throughout their weeks of years, according to the jubilees forever, until I shall descend and dwell with them in all the ages of eternity. And he said to the angel of the presence, Write for Moses from the first creation until my sanctuary is built in their midst forever and ever. And the Lord will appear in the sight of all, and everyone will know that I am the God of Israel, and the father of all the children of Jacob, and king upon Mount Zion forever and ever. And Zion and Jerusalem will be holy. And the angel of the presence, who went before the camp of Israel, took the tablets of the division of years, from the time of the creation of the law and the testimony, according to their weeks of years, according to the jubilees year by year, throughout the full number of jubilees, from the day of creation till the day of the new creation, when the heaven and earth and all their creatures shall be renewed according to the powers of heaven, and according to the whole nature of earth, until the sanctuary of the Lord is created in Jerusalem, upon Mount Zion, and all the lights will be renewed for healing and peace and blessing for all of the elect of Israel, in order that it might be thus from that day and unto all the days of the earth. And the angel of the presence spoke to Moses by the word of the Lord, saying, Write the whole account of creation, that in 6 days the Lord God completed all his work, and all that he created. And he observed a Sabbath the 7th day, and he sanctified it for all ages, and he set it as a sign for all his works. For on the first day he created the heavens, which are above, and the earth, and the waters, and all of the spirits which minister before him, the angels of the presence, the angels of sanctification, and the angels of the spirit of fire, and the angels of the spirit of the winds, and the angel of the spirit of the clouds, and darkness, and snow, and hail, and frost, and the angels of resoundings, and thunders, and lightnings, and the angels of the spirits of cold and heat, winter and springtime, and harvest and summer, and all the spirits of his creatures which are in heaven and on earth. And he created the abysses and darkness, both evening and night, and light, both dawn and daylight, which he prepared in the knowledge of his heart. Then we saw his works, and we blessed him, and offered praise before him on account of all his works, because he made 7 great works on the first day. And on the second day he made the firmament in the midst of the water, and the waters were divided on that day. One half of them went up above, and one half of them went down beneath the firmament, which is in the middle of the surface of all the earth. And he made only this one work on the second day. On the third day he did as he said to the waters, Let them pass from the surface of the whole earth into one place, and let the dry land appear. And the waters did as he said, and they turned aside from upon the surface of the earth, into one place outside of this firmament, and dry land appeared. And on that day he created for it all of the seas in which of their gathering places, and of all the rivers, and the gathering places of the waters on the mountains and in the earth, and of all the ponds, and of all the dew of the earth, and the seed which is sown, and everything which is eaten. And the trees will bear fruit, and other trees, and the garden of Eden, in the place of luxury, and everything. These four great species the Lord made on the third day. And on the fourth day he made the sun, and the moon, and the stars, and he set them in the firmament of heaven, so that they might give light upon the whole earth, and rule over the day and the night, and separate light and darkness. And the Lord set the sun as a great sign upon the earth for days, Sabbaths, months, feast days, years, Sabbaths of years, jubilees, and for all of the appointed times of the years. And it separates the light from the darkness, and so that everything which sprouts and grows upon the earth might surely prosper. These three kinds he made on the fourth day. And on the fifth day he created this great sea monsters in the midst of the depths of all the waters. For these were made by his hands, and for all as the first corporeal beings, and all the fish which move in the waters, and all the birds which fly, and all of their kind. And the sun rose above them to make them prosper, and above everything which was on the earth, everything which sprouts from the earth, and every tree which bears fruit, and all flesh. These three kinds he made on the fifth day. And on the sixth day he made all of the beasts of the earth, and all of the cattle, and everything which moves upon the earth. And after all of this he made man, male and female he made them, and he gave him dominion over everything which was upon the earth, and which was in the seas, and over everything which flies, and over beasts and cattle, and everything which moves upon the earth, or above the whole earth. And over all this he gave them dominion. And these four kinds he made on the sixth day, and the total was 22 kinds. And he completed all of his works on the sixth day, everything which is in the heavens, and the earth, and in the seas, and in the depths, and in the light, and in the darkness, and in every place. And he gave us a great sign, the Sabbath day, so that we might work 6 days, and observe a Sabbath from all the work on the seventh day. And he told us, all the angels of the presence, and all of the angels of sanctification, these two great kinds, that we might keep the Sabbath with him in heaven and on earth. And he said to us, Behold, I shall separate for myself a people from among all the nations, and they will also keep the Sabbath. And I will sanctify them for myself, and I will bless them, just as I have been sanctified, and shall sanctify the Sabbath day for myself. Thus I shall bless them. And they will be my people, and I will be their God. And I have chosen the seed of Jacob from among all that I have seen, and I have recorded him as my firstborn son, and have sanctified him for myself forever and ever. And I will make known to them the Sabbath day, so that they might observe therein a Sabbath from all work. And thus he created therein a sign by which they might keep the Sabbath with us on the seventh day, to eat and drink, and to bless the one who created all things, just as he blessed and sanctified for himself a people who appeared from all the nations, so that they might keep the Sabbath together with us. And he caused their desires to go up as a pleasing fragrance, which is acceptable before him always. There were 22 chief men from Adam until Jacob, and 22 kinds of works were made before the seventh day. The former is blessed and sanctified, and the latter is also blessed and sanctified. One was like the other with respect to sanctification and blessing. And it was granted to the former that they should always be the blessed and sanctified ones of the testimony, and that the first law, just as he had sanctified and blessed the Sabbath day on the seventh day. He created heaven and earth and everything which he created in 6 days. And the Lord made the seventh day holy for all his works. Therefore he commanded concerning it, Let everyone who will do any work therein die, and also whoever defiles it, let him surely die. And you command the children of Israel, and let them guard this day, so that they might sanctify it, and do not do any work therein. And do not defile it, because it is more holy than any day. And everyone who pollutes it, let him surely die. And anyone who will do any work therein, let him surely die forever, so that the children of Israel might guard this day throughout their generations, and not be uprooted from the land, because it is a holy day and a blessed day. And every man who guards it and keeps therein a Sabbath from all his work will be holy and blessed always like us. Make known and recount to the children of Israel the judgment of the day, that they should keep the Sabbath thereon, and not forsake it in the error of their hearts. And make known that it is not permitted to do work thereon which is unlawful, it being unseemly to do their pleasure thereon. And make known that they should not prepare thereon anything which will be eaten or drunk, which they have not prepared for themselves on the 6th day. And make it known that it is not lawful to draw water, or to bring in or to take out any work within their dwellings, which is carried in their gates. And they shall not bring in or take out from the house to house on that day, because it is more holy and it is more blessed than any day of the Jubilee of Jubilees. On this day we kept the Sabbath in heaven, before it was made known to any human to keep the Sabbath thereon upon the earth. The Creator of all blessed it, but he did not sanctify any people or nations to keep the Sabbath thereon, with the sole exception of Israel. He granted to them alone that they may eat and drink and keep the Sabbath thereon upon the earth. And the Creator of all, who created this day for a blessing and sanctification and glory, blessed it more than all days. This law and testimony was given to the children of Israel as an eternal law for their generations. And in 6 days of the 7th week, by the word of the Lord, we brought to Adam all of the beasts, and all of the cattle, and all of the birds, and everything which moves upon the earth, and everything which moves in the water, each one according to its kind, and each one according to its likeness, the beasts on the 1st day, and cattle on the 2nd day, and the birds on the 3rd day, and everything which moves upon the earth on the 4th day, and whatever moves in the water on the 5th day. And Adam named all of them, each one according to its name. And whatever he called them became their names. And during these 5 days Adam was observing all of these, male and female, according to every kind which is on the earth. But he was alone, and there was none whom he found for himself, who was like himself, who would help him. And the Lord said to us, It is not good that the man should be alone. Let us make for him a helper who is like him. And the Lord our God cast a deep sleep upon him, and he slept. And he took one bone from the midst of his bones for the woman, and that rib was the origin of the woman from the midst of his bones. And he built up flesh in place of it, and he constructed a woman. And he awakened Adam from his sleep, and when he awoke he stood up on the 6th day. And he brought her to him, and he knew her, and he said to her, This is now bone of my bone, and flesh from my flesh. This one will be called my wife, because she was taken from her husband. Therefore a man and a woman shall be one, and therefore it shall be that a man will leave his father and his mother, and he will join with his wife, and they will become one flesh. In the 1st week Adam was created, and also the rib, his wife. And in the 2nd week he showed her to him. And therefore the commandment was given to observe 7 days for a male, but for a female twice 7 days in their impurity. And after 40 days were completed for Adam in the land where he was created, we brought to him into the Garden of Eden, so that he might work it and guard it. And on the 8th day his wife was also brought in. And after this she entered the Garden of Eden. And therefore the command was written in the heavenly tablets for one who bears. If she bears a male, she shall remain 7 days in her impurity, like the first 7 days. And 33 days shall she remain in the blood of her purity. And she shall not touch anything holy. And she shall not enter the sanctuary until she has completed these days, which are in accord with the rule for a male child. And that which is in accord with the rule for a female is 2 weeks, like the first 2 weeks in her impurity. And 66 days she shall remain in the blood of her purity, and their total will be 80 days. And when she finished those 80 days, we brought her into the Garden of Eden, because it is more holy than any land. And every tree which is planted in it is holy. Therefore the ordinances of these days were ordained for anyone who bears a male or female, that she might not touch anything holy, and she might not enter the sanctuary until these days are completed for a male or female. This is the law and the testimony which is written for Israel, so that they might keep it always. And during the first week of the first Jubilee, Adam and his wife had been in the Garden of Eden for 7 years, tilling and guarding it. And we gave him work, and we were teaching him to do everything which was appropriate for tilling. And he was tilling, and he was naked, but he neither knew it, nor was he ashamed. And he was guarding the garden from the birds and the beasts and cattle, and gathering its fruits and eating. And he used to set aside the rest for himself and for his wife. And what was being guarded he set aside. At the end of 7 years, which he completed there, 7 years exactly, in the second month, on the 17th day, the serpent came and drew near to the woman. And the serpent said to the woman, "The Lord commanded you, saying, You shall not eat from any tree which is in the garden." And she said to him, "The Lord said, Eat from all of the trees which are in the garden. But the Lord said to us, You shall not eat from the tree which is in the midst of the garden, and you shall not touch it, lest you die." And the serpent said to the woman, "It is not true that you shall surely die, because the Lord knows that on that day you eat of it, your eyes will become opened, and you will become like gods, and you will know good and evil." And the woman saw the tree, that it was pleasant, and it was pleasing to the eye, and the fruit was good to eat, and she took some of it, and she ate. And she first covered her shame with a fig leaf, and then she gave it to Adam, and he ate, and his eyes were opened, and he saw that he was naked. And he took a fig leaf, and sewed it, and made an apron for himself, and he covered his shame. And the Lord cursed the serpent, and he was angry with it forever. And he was angry with the woman also, because she had listened to the voice of the serpent, and had eaten. And he said to her, "I will surely multiply your grief and your birth pangs. Bear children in grief, and to your husband is your return, and he will rule over you." And to Adam he said, "Because you listened to the voice of your wife, and you ate from that tree which I commanded that you should not eat, the land shall be cursed because of you. Thorns and thistles shall sprout up for you, and eat your bread in the sweat of your face until you return to the earth from which you were taken, because you are earth, and to the earth you will return." And he made for them garments of skin, and he dressed them and sent them from the Garden of Eden. And on that day, when Adam went out from the Garden of Eden, he offered a sweet-smelling sacrifice, frankincense, galbanum, stacte, and spices. In the morning with the rising of the sun, from the day he covered his shame. On that day the mouth of all the beasts and cattle and birds and whatever walked or moved was stopped from speaking, because all of them used to speak with one another with one speech and one language. And he sent from the Garden of Eden all the flesh which was in the Garden of Eden, and all of the flesh was scattered, each one according to its kind, and each one according to its family, into the place which was created for them. But from all the beasts and all the cattle he granted to Adam alone, so that he might cover his shame. Therefore it is commanded in the heavenly tablets to all who will know the judgment of the law, that they should cover their shame, and they should not be uncovered as the Gentiles are uncovered. And on the first of the 4th month Adam and his wife went out from the Garden of Eden, and dwelt in the land of Eldah, in the land of their creation. And Adam named his wife Eve. They had no son until the first Jubilee, but after this he knew her, and he tilled the land, and as he had been taught in the Garden of Eden. And on the 3rd week, in the 2nd Jubilee, she bore Cain, and in the 4th she bore Abel, and in the 5th she bore Awan, his daughter. And at the beginning of the 3rd Jubilee, Cain killed Abel, because the sacrifice of Abel was accepted, but the offering of Cain was not accepted. And he killed him in the field, and his blood cried out from the earth to heaven, making accusation because he killed him. And the Lord rebuked Cain on account of Abel, because he killed him. And he made him a fugitive on the earth because of the blood of his brother, and he cursed him upon the earth. And therefore it is written in the heavenly tablets, "Cursed is the one who strikes his fellow with malice." And all who have seen and heard shall say, "So be it." And the man who saw and did not report it shall be cursed like him. Therefore, when we come before the Lord our God, we will make known all the sins which occur in heaven and in earth, and which are in the light, or in the darkness, or in any place. And Adam and his wife were mourning 4 weeks of years on account of Abel. And in the 4th year of the 5th week they rejoiced. And Adam again knew his wife, and she bore a son for him. And he named him Seth, because he said, "The Lord has raised up another seed for us upon the earth in place of Abel, because Cain killed him." And in the 6th week he begat Azurah, his daughter. And Cain took his sister Awan as a wife, And she bore for him Enoch at the first of the 4th Jubilee. And in the 1st year of the 1st week of the 5th Jubilee, buildings were constructed in the land. And Cain built the city, and he named it with the name of his son Enoch. And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she bore 9 more children. And in the 5th week of the 5th Jubilee, Seth took Azurah, his sister, as a wife. And in the 4th year of that week she bore for him Enos. He was the first to call the name of the Lord upon the earth. And in the 7th Jubilee, in the 3rd week, Enos took Noam, his sister, as wife. And she bore a son for him in the 3rd year of the 5th week. He named him Kenan. And at the end of the 8th Jubilee, Kenan took for himself a wife, Maulaeleth, his sister, as a wife. And she bore a son for him in the 9th Jubilee, in the 1st week, in the 3rd year of that week. And she called him Mahalalel. And in the 2nd week, in the 10th Jubilee, Mahalalel took for himself a wife, Dinah, the daughter of Barachiel, the daughter of his father's brother, as a wife. And she bore a son for him in the 3rd week of the 6th year. And he called him Jared, because in his days the angels of the Lord, who were called the Watchers, came down upon the earth in order to teach the sons of man and perform judgment and uprightness upon the earth. And in the 11th Jubilee, Jared took for himself a wife, and her name was Barakah, the daughter of Rasuyal, and the daughter of his father's brother, as a wife, in the 4th week of that Jubilee. And she bore a son for him in the 5th week, in the 4th week of the Jubilee, and he called him Enoch. This one was the one who learned writing and knowledge and wisdom from among the sons of men, from among those who were born upon earth, and who wrote in a book the signs of the heaven, according to the order of their months, so that the sons of men might know the appointed times of the years, according to their order, with respect to each of their months. This one was the first who wrote a testimony and testified to the children of men throughout the generations of the earth, and their weeks according to jubilees he recounted. And the days of the years he made known, and the months he set in order, and the Sabbaths of the years he recounted, just as it was made known to him. And he saw what was and what will be in a vision of his sleep, as it will happen among the children of men in their generations, until the day of judgment. He saw and knew everything, and wrote his testimony, and deposited the testimony upon the earth, against all the children of men in their generations. And in the 12th Jubilee, in its 7th week, he took for himself a wife, and her name was Edni, the daughter of Danel, his father's brother, as a wife. And in the 6th year of this week she bore a son for him, and he called him Methuselah. And he was therefore with the angels of God 6 jubilees of years, and they showed him everything which is on earth and in the heavens, the dominion of the sun. And he wrote everything, and bore witness to the watchers, the ones who sinned with the daughters of men, because they began to mingle themselves with the daughters of men, so that they might be polluted. And Enoch bore witness against all of them, and he was taken from among the children of men. And we led him to the Garden of Eden for greatness and honor. And behold, he is there, writing condemnation and judgment of the world, and of all the evils of the children of men. And because of him none of the water of the flood came upon the whole land of Eden, for he was put there for a sign, so that he might bear witness against all the children of men, so that he might relate all of the deeds of the generations until the day of judgment. And he offered incense, which is acceptable before the Lord in the evening, at the holy place, on Mount Cabrera. For the Lord has 4 sacred places upon the earth, the Garden of Eden, and the mountain of the east, and this mountain which you are upon today, Mount Sinai, and Mount Zion, which will be sanctified in the new creation for the sanctification of the earth. On account of this, the earth will be sanctified from all sin and from pollution throughout eternal generations. And in the 14th Jubilee, Methuselah took as his wife Edna, daughter of Azriel, his father's brother, as a wife, in the 3rd week of the 1st year of that week. And he begot a son, and he called him Lamech. And in the 15th Jubilee, in the 3rd week, Lamech took for himself a wife, and her name was Betinos, the daughter of Barachiel, the daughter of his father's brother, as a wife. And in that week she bore a son for him, and he called him Noah, saying, This one will console me from my grief, and from all my labor, and from the land which the Lord cursed. And at the end of the 19th Jubilee, in the 7th week, in the 6th year, Adam died, and all of his children buried him in the land of his creation. And he was the first who was buried in the earth. And he lacked 70 years from 1,000 years. For 1,000 years are like one day of the testimony of heaven, and therefore it was written concerning the tree of knowledge. In this day you eat from it, you will die. Therefore he did not complete the years of his day, because he died in it. And at the end of that jubilee, Cain was killed 1 year after him, and his house fell upon him, and he died in the midst of his house. And he was killed by its stones, because he killed Abel with a stone, and with a stone he was killed by righteous judgment. Therefore it is ordained in the heavenly tablets, with the weapons with which a man kills his fellow, he shall be killed. Just as he wounded him, thus shall they do to him. And in the 25th Jubilee Noah took a wife for himself, and her name was Imzara, the daughter of Rachael, daughter of his father's brother, as a wife. And in the first year, in the 5th week, and in its 3rd year she bore for him Shem, and in its 5th year she bore for him Ham, and in the 1st year of the 6th week she bore for him Japheth. And when the children of men began to multiply on the surface of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the angels of the Lord saw in a certain year of that Jubilee that they were good to look at, and they took wives for themselves from all those whom they chose, and they bore children for them, and they were the giants. And injustice increased upon the earth, and all the flesh corrupted its way, man and cattle and beasts and birds and everything which walks upon the earth. And they all corrupted their way and their ordinances, and they began to eat one another. And injustice grew upon the earth, and every imagination of the thoughts of all mankind was thus continually evil. And the Lord saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupted, and all flesh had corrupted its order, and all who were upon the earth had done every sort of evil in his sight. And he said, I will wipe out man and all flesh which I have created from upon the surface of the earth. But Noah alone found favor in the sight of the Lord. And against his angels whom he had sent to the earth he was very angry. He commanded that they be uprooted from all their dominion. And he told us to bind them in the depths of the earth. Behold, they are bound in the midst of them, and they are isolated. And against their children a word went forth from before his presence, so that he might smite them with the sword, and remove from them from under heaven. And he said, My spirit will not dwell upon man forever, for they are flesh, and their days will be 110 years. And he sent the sword among them, so that each one might kill his fellow. And they began to kill one another, until they all fell on the sword, and they were wiped out from the earth. And their parents also watched, and subsequently they were bound in the depths of the earth forever, until the day of great judgment, in order for judgment to be executed upon all those who corrupted their ways and their deeds before the Lord. And he wiped out every one from their places, and not one of them remained whom he did not judge according to all his wickedness. And he made for all his works a new and righteous nature, so that they might not sin in all their nature forever, and so that they might be all righteous, each in his kind, always. And the judgment of all of them had been ordained and written in the heavenly tablets without injustice. And if any of them transgress from their way with respect to what was ordained for them to walk in, or if they do not walk in it, the judgment for every sort of nature and every kind has been written. And there is nothing excluded which is in heaven or on earth, or in the light, or in the darkness, or in Sheol, or in the depths, or in the places of darkness. And all their judgments are ordained, written, and engraved. And he will judge concerning every one, the great one according to his greatness, and the small one according to his smallness, and each one according to his way. And he is not one who accepts persons, and he is not one who accepts gifts, when he says that he will execute judgment upon each one. If one gave everything which is in the earth, he would not accept gifts or persons, and he would not accept anything from his hand, because he is a righteous judge. And for the children of Israel it has been written and ordained, if they return to him in righteousness, he will forgive all of their sins, and he will pardon all of their transgressions. It is written and it is ordained, he will have mercy upon all who return from their error, once each year. But to any who corrupted their way and their counsel before the flood, he did not show partiality, except Noah alone, for he showed partiality to him for the sake of his sons, whom he saved from the waters of the flood, and for his sake, because his heart was righteous in all of his ways, just as it was commanded concerning him. And he did not transgress anything which was ordained for him. And the Lord said, Let everything which is upon dry land be blotted out, men and cattle, and beasts, and birds of the heaven, and whatever moves on the earth. And he commanded Noah to make an ark for himself, so that he might save himself from the water of the flood. And Noah made an ark in all respects, just as he commanded him in the 22nd jubilee of years, in the 5th week, in the 5th year. And he entered in it the 6th year, and in the 2nd month, on the 1st of the 2nd month, until the 16th day. And he and everything which was brought to him entered into the ark. And the Lord shut it up from outside on the evening of the 17th. And the Lord opened the 7 floodgates of heaven, and the mouths of the springs of the great deep were 7 mouths in number. And these floodgates sent water down from heaven 40 days and 40 nights. And the springs of the deep sent up water until the whole world was full of water. And the water increased upon the earth. 15 cubits the water rose over every tall mountain. And the ark rose from upon the earth, and it moved upon the surface of the water. And all of the water stayed upon the surface of the earth 5 months, 150 days. And the ark went and rested on the top of Lubar, one of the mountains of Ararat. And in the 4th month the springs of the great deep were closed, and the floodgates of heaven were held shut. And on the new moon of the 7th month all of the mouths of the deeps of the earth were opened, and the water began to go down into the depths below. And on the 1st of the 10th month the heads of the mountains appeared, and on the 1st of the 1st month the land appeared. And the water dried up from upon the earth in the 5th week, in its 7th year. And on the 17th day in the 2nd month the land was dry. And on its 27th day he opened the ark, and he sent out of it the beasts, the cattle, and birds, and whatever moved. And on the 1st of the 3rd month he went out of the ark, and he built an altar on that mountain. And he made atonement for the land. And he took the kid of a goat, and he made atonement with its blood for all the sins of the land, because everything which was on it had been blotted out, except those who were in the ark with Noah. And he offered up the fat upon the altar. And he took a calf, a goat, a lamb, salt, a turtle dove, and a young dove, and he offered up a burnt offering on the altar. And he placed upon them an offering kneaded with oil. And he sprinkled wine, and placed frankincense upon everything. And he offered up a sweet aroma which was pleasing before the Lord. And the Lord smelled the sweet aroma, and he made a covenant with him, so that there might not be flood waters which would destroy the earth. All the days of the earth, seed time and harvest, would not cease. Cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night, will not change their ordinances or cease forever. But as for you, increase and be multiplied on the earth, and become many upon it, and become a blessing upon it. Fear and terror of you I will set upon everything which is on the land or in the sea. And behold, I have given you all of the beasts, and everything which flies, and everything which moves upon the earth, and in the water, the fish and everything, for food like the green herbs. And I have given you everything so that you might eat. But flesh which is filled with life, that is, with blood, you shall not eat, because the life of all flesh is in the blood, lest your blood be sought for your lives. From the hand of every man, from the hand of every creature, I will seek the blood of a man. Whoever pours out the blood of a man, by a man his blood shall be poured out, because in the image of the Lord he made Adam. And as for you, increase and become many in the land. And Noah and his sons swore that they would not eat any blood which is in any flesh. And he made a covenant before the Lord God forever, in all the days of the generation of the earth in that month. Therefore he spoke to you, so that you might also make a covenant with the children of Israel, with an oath in this month upon the mountain. And you will sprinkle blood upon them on account of all the words of the covenant which the Lord made with them for all time. This testimony is written concerning you, so that you might keep it always, lest you ever eat any blood of the beasts of the birds or cattle throughout all the days of the earth. And the man who eats the blood of the beasts or cattle or birds throughout all the days of the earth shall be uprooted, and his seed from the earth. And you command the children of Israel not to eat any blood, so that their names and seed might be before the Lord God always. And there is no limit of days for this law, because it is forever. They shall keep it for their generation, so that they might make supplication on your behalf with blood before the altar on every day. And at the hour of daybreak and evening they will seek atonement for their own behalf continually before the Lord, so that they might guard it and not be rooted out. And he gave a sign to Noah and his children, that there should not again be flood upon the earth. And he set his bow in the clouds for a sign of the covenant which is forever. that the water of the flood should therefore not be upon the earth to destroy it all of the days of the earth. Therefore it is ordained and written in the heavenly tablets that they should observe the feast of Shavuot in this month, once per year, in order to renew the covenant in all respects, year by year. And all of this feast was celebrated in heaven from the day of creation until the days of Noah, 26 jubilees and 5 weeks of years. And Noah and his children kept it for 7 jubilees and 1 week of years until the day of the death of Noah. And from the day of the death of Noah, his sons corrupted it until the days of Abraham, and they ate blood. But Abraham alone kept it, and Isaac and Jacob and his sons kept it until your days. But in your days the children of Israel forgot it, until you renewed it for them on this mountain. And you command the children of Israel so that they might keep this feast in all their generations as a commandment to them. 1 day per year in this month they shall all celebrate the feast. For it is the feast of Shavuot, and it is the feast of the first fruits. This feast is twofold, and of two natures, just as it is written and engraved concerning it. Observe it. This is because I have written it in the book of the first law which I wrote for you, so that you might observe it in each of its appointed times, 1 day per year. And I have told you its sacrificial offerings, so that the children of Israel might remember them and observe them in their generations, in this month, 1 day each year. And on the first of the first month, and on the first of the fourth month, and on the first of the seventh month, and on the first of the 10th month are the days of remembrance, and they are the days of appointed times, and 4 parts of the year. They are written and inscribed for an eternal witness, and Noah ordained them for himself as feasts for eternal generations, because they were a memorial for him. And on the first day of the first month he was told to make an ark, and on it the land dried up, and he opened up and saw the land. And on the first of the fourth month the mouths of the deeps of the abysses which were beneath were shut. And on the first of the 7th month all of the mouths of the depths of the earth were opened, and the water began to go down into them. On the first of the 10th month the heads of the mountains appeared, and Noah rejoiced, and therefore he ordained them for himself as feasts of remembrance forever. And thus they are ordained. And they set them upon the heavenly tablets. Each one of them is 13 weeks from one to another of the remembrances, from the first to the second, and from the second to the third, and from the third to the fourth. And all the days which will be commanded will be 52 weeks of days, and all of them are a complete year. Thus it is engraved and ordained on the heavenly tablets, and there is no transgressing in a single year, from year to year. And you command the children of Israel so that they shall guard the years in this number, 364 days. And it will be a complete year, and no one shall corrupt its appointed time from its days or from its feasts, because all of the appointed times will arrive in them according to their testimony. And they will not pass over a day, and they will not corrupt a feast. But if they are transgressed, and they do not observe them according to his commandment, then they will corrupt all of their fixed times. And the years will be moved from within this order, and they will transgress their ordinances. And all of the sons of Israel will forget, and they will not find the way of years. And they will forget all of the new moons, and the appointed times, and Sabbaths. And they will set awry all of the ordinances of the years. For I know, and henceforth I shall make you to know, not from my own heart, because this book is written before me, and it is ordained in the heavenly tablets of the division of days, lest they forget the feasts of the covenant, and walk in the feasts of the Gentiles, after their errors, and after their ignorance. And there will be those who will examine the moon diligently, because it will corrupt the appointed times, and will advance from year to year 10 days. Therefore the years will come to them as corrupt, and they make the day of testimony a reproach, and a profane day a festival. And they will mix up everything, a holy day as profaned, and a profane one for a holy day, because they will set awry the months and the Sabbaths, the feasts and jubilees. Therefore I shall command you, and I shall bear witness to you, so that you may bear witness to them. Because after you have died, your sons will be corrupted, so that they will not make a year only 364 days, and therefore they will set awry the months and the appointed times, and the Sabbaths and the feasts, and they will eat all of the blood with all the flesh. And in the 7th week, in the first year of that Jubilee, Noah planted a vine on the mountain on which the ark rested, whose name is Lubar, one of the mountains of Ararat. And it produced fruit in the 4th year, and he guarded its fruit. And he picked it in that year in the 7th month. And he made wine from it, and he put it in a vessel, and he guarded it until the 5th year, until the 1st day on the 1st of the 1st month. And on that day he made a feast with rejoicing. And he made a burnt offering to the Lord, one calf from the bulls, one ram, a lamb of 7 years, and one kid of the goats, in order that he might thereby seek atonement for himself and for his sons. And he prepared the kid first, and he placed some of its blood on the flesh which was on the altar which he had made. And all of the fat of the bull and the ram and the lamb were offered up upon the altar. And he made the burnt offering. And he offered up all of their flesh upon the altar. And he placed all of their sacrifice upon it, kneaded with oil. And after that he sprinkled wine in the fire which he had placed upon the altar. And he presented frankincense upon the altar, and offered up a sweet odor which is pleasing before the Lord his God, and rejoiced. And he drank some of that wine, he and his sons, with rejoicing. And when evening came, he entered into his tent, and lay down drunk. And he slept, and was uncovered in his tent as he was sleeping. And Ham saw Noah his father naked, and he went out and told his 2 brothers outside. And Shem took his garment, and he stood up, and he and Japheth, and they placed the garment on their shoulders, and, turning backward, they covered the shame of their father, and their faces were backward. And Noah woke up from his wine, and knew everything which his youngest son had done to him. And he cursed his son, and said, Cursed is Canaan, let him be an enslaved servant of his brothers. And he blessed Shem, and said, May the Lord, the God of Shem, be blessed, and may Canaan be his servant. May the Lord enlarge Japheth, and may the Lord dwell in the dwelling place of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. And Ham knew that his father cursed his youngest son, and it was disgusting to him that he cursed his son. And he separated from his father, he and his sons with him, Cush and Mizraim, and Put and Canaan. And he, Ham, built a city for himself, and he named it after his wife, Naeltamauc. And Japheth saw that it was jealous of his brother, and he also built a city for himself, and named it after his wife, Adatananses. And Shem dwelt with his father Noah, and built a city near his father on the mountain. And he also named it after his wife, Sedekethelabab. And behold, these 3 cities were near Mount Lubar. Sedekethelabab was in front of the mountain on its east, and Naeltamauc was facing south, and Adataneses was toward the west. And these are the sons of Shem, Elam, and Ashur, and Arphaxad, who was born 2 years after the flood, and Lud, and Aram. The sons of Japheth are Gomer, and Magog, and Madai, and Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras. These are the sons of Noah. And in the 28th Jubilee, Noah began to command his grandsons with ordinances and commandments and all the judgments which he knew. And he bore witness to his sons, so that they might do justice and cover the shame of their flesh, and bless the one who created them, and honor father and mother. And each one love his neighbor, and preserve themselves from fornication and pollution, and from all injustice. For on account of these 3 the flood came upon the earth. For it was because of the fornication which the watchers, apart from the mandate of their authority, fornicated with the daughters of men, and took for themselves wives, from whom they chose, and made a beginning of impurity. And they begot sons, the Naphidim, and all of them were dissimilar, and each one ate his fellow. The giants killed the Naphil, and the Naphil killed the Elio, and the Elio mankind, and man his neighbor. And everyone sold himself in order that he might do injustice and pour out much blood. And the earth was full of injustice. And afterward they sinned against beasts and birds and everything which moves or walks upon the earth. And they poured out much blood upon the earth. And all the thoughts and desires of men were always contemplating vanity and evil. And the Lord blotted out everything from the face of the earth on account of the evil of their deeds, and on account of the blood which they poured out into the midst of the land. He blotted out everything. And we were left, I and you, my children, and everything which entered with us into the ark. And behold, I see your deeds before me, that you have not been ones who walked in righteousness, because you have begun to walk in the paths of corruption. And each one of you will be separated from his neighbor, and this one will be jealous of that one. And I see that you will not be together, O my sons, each one with his brother. For I see, and behold, the demons have begun to mislead you and your children. And now I fear for your sakes that after I die, you will pour out the blood of men upon the earth, and you will be blotted out from the surface of the earth. For all who eat the blood of man, and all who eat the blood of any flesh will be blotted out, all of them, from the earth. And no man who eats blood or sheds the blood of man will remain upon the earth, and neither seed nor posterity will remain alive for him under heaven, for they will go down into Sheol, and into the place of judgment they will descend, and into the darkness of the depths they will all be removed with a cruel death. And let no blood from any of the blood which is in anything be seen upon you on the day when you sacrifice any beast or cattle, or what flies upon the earth. But do a good deed for yourselves by covering that which will be poured out upon the surface of the earth. And you shall not be like the one who eats with blood. But beware lest they should eat blood before you. Cover the blood, because thus I was commanded to testify to you and to your children together with all flesh. And you shall not eat living flesh, lest it be that your blood, which is your life, be sought by the hand of all flesh which eats upon the earth. For the land will not be cleansed of the blood which is poured out upon it, because by the blood of one who poured it out will the land be cleansed in all of its generations. And now, my children, hear and do justice and righteousness, so that you might be planted in righteousness on the surface of the whole earth, and your honor may be lifted up before my God, who saved me from the water of the flood. And behold, you will go and build for yourselves cities, and you will plant in them every plant which is upon the earth, and every tree, moreover, which bears fruit. For 3 years its fruit will not be gathered from everything which may be eaten, but in the 4th year its fruit will be gathered. And let one offer up the first fruits which are acceptable before the Lord Most High, who made heaven and earth and everything, so that they might offer up the juice, the first of the wine, and the oil, as the first fruits upon the altar of the Lord, who will accept it. And that which is left, the servants of the house of the Lord will eat before the altar which receives it. And in the 7th year make its release, so that you might release it in righteousness and in uprightness, so that you will be righteous, and all your plants will be upright. Because thus Enoch the father of your father commanded Methuselah his son, and Methuselah commanded Lamech his son, and Lamech commanded me everything which his fathers commanded him. And I am commanding you, my sons, just as Enoch commanded his son in the first Jubilees, while he was alive in his 7th generation. He commanded and bore witness to his son and his grandsons until the day of his death. And on the 29th Jubilee, in the 1st week, at its beginning, Arphaxad took a wife, and her name was Rasuiah, daughter of Susan, daughter of Elam, as a wife. And she bore a son for him in the 3rd year of that week, and he called him Cainan. And the child grew, and the father taught him writing. And he went forth in order that he might seek a place where he could build a city. And he found a writing which the ancestors engraved on stone. And he read what was in it, and transcribed it. And he sinned because of what was in it, since there was in it the teaching of the watchers, by which they used to observe the omens of the sun and the moon and the stars within all the signs of heaven. And he copied it down, but he did not tell about it, because he feared to tell Noah about it, lest he be angry with him because of it. And in the 30th Jubilee, on the 2nd week, in the 1st year, he took a wife, and her name was Milcah, daughter of Madai, son of Japheth. And in its 4th year he begot a son, and he called him Shelah, because he said, I have certainly been sent out. And in the 4th year Shelah was born, and he grew up. And he took a wife, and her name was Muach, daughter of Kesed, his father's brother, as a wife in the 31st Jubilee, in the 5th week of the 1st year. And she bore a son for him in its 5th year, and he called him Eber. And he took a wife, and her name was Azurad, daughter of Nebrad, in the 32nd Jubilee, in the 7th week, in its 3rd year. And in its 6th year she bore a son for him, and he called him Peleg, because in the days when he was born the sons of Noah began dividing up the earth for themselves. Therefore he called him Peleg, and they divided it in an evil manner among themselves, and they told it to Noah. And it came to pass at the beginning of the 33rd Jubilee that they divided the land in 3 parts, for Shem, Ham, and Japheth, according to the inheritance of each. In the 1st year, in the 1st week, while one of us who were sent was dwelling with him, and he called his children, and they came to him. and they their children. And he divided by lot the land which his 3 sons would possess. And they stretched out their hands and took the document from the bosom of Noah their father. And the lot of Shem was assigned in the document as the middle of the earth, which he would take for his possession and for his sons for eternal generations, from the midst of the Rapha mountains, from the mouth of the water of the river Tinah. And his portion goes towards the west through the midst of the river, and it goes on until it draws near to the water of the abysses from which this river goes forth. And its waters pour out forth into the Maat Sea, and this river goes on into the great sea. And everything which is toward the north belongs to Japheth, and everything which is toward the south belongs to Shem. And his portion goes on until it draws near Carasso, which is in the bosom of the tongue which looks toward the south. And his portion goes on toward the great sea, and it goes straight until it draws near to the west of the tongue which looks toward the south, because the name of this sea is the tongue of the sea of Egypt. And it is turned from there toward the south, toward the mouth of the great sea, and on the shore of the waters. And it goes on towards the west of Aphrah, and it goes on until it draws near the water of the river Gihon, and towards the south of the water of Gihon, towards the shore of that river. And it goes on toward the east until it draws near to the Garden of Eden, towards its south, to the south and east of all the land of Eden, and to all of the east. And it turns in the east, and it comes forth until it draws near toward the last of the mountain, whose name is Rapha, and it goes down toward the shore of the mouth of the Tinah river. This portion was assigned by lot to Shem and to his sons to possess it forever for his generations forever. And Noah rejoiced because this portion was assigned to Shem and for his sons. And he remembered everything which he spoke with his mouth concerning him, because he said, May the Lord God of Shem be blessed, and may the Lord dwell in the dwelling place of Shem. And he knew that the Garden of Eden was the Holy of Holies, and the dwelling of the Lord. And Mount Sinai was in the midst of the desert, and Mount Zion was in the midst of the navel of the earth. And the 3 of these were created as holy places, one facing the other. And he blessed the God of gods, who placed in his mouth the word of the Lord, and also the eternal God. And he knew that a blessed portion and a blessing had reached Shem and his sons for eternal generations. All the land of Eden, all the land of the Red Sea, and all the land of the east, India, go along the Red Sea and its mountains, all of the land of Basa, all of the land of Lebanon, the islands of Caphtor, all the mountains, all of Mount Senir, Amanus, Mount Ashur, which is north, all of the land of Elam, Ashur, Babel, Susa, Media, and all the mountains of Ararat, and all the region beyond the sea, which is beyond Mount Asher, which is toward the north, and blessed and wide land, and everything which is in it is very good. And to Ham was assigned the second portion, towards the other side of the Gihon, towards the south, on the right of the garden. And it goes on towards the south, and it goes along all the mountains of fire. And his portion goes on towards the west, toward the Atel Sea. And it goes on westward until it draws near the Ma'uk Sea, to which nothing descends without perishing. And it goes forth in the north to the end of Gadir. And it goes forth along the edge of the water of the sea into the waters of the great sea until it approaches the river Gihon. And it goes on along the Gihon river until it approaches the right side of the Garden of Eden. And this is the land that went forth to Ham as a portion, which he will possess forever for himself and for his children and for their generations forever. And for Japheth, the third portion was assigned beyond the Tinah river toward the north of the mouth of its waters. And it goes on towards the northeast of all the region of Gog and everything east of it. And it goes on towards the north to the north. And it goes towards the mountains of Kelt towards the north. And it goes towards the mountains of Kelt towards the north, toward the Ma'uk Sea. And it comes toward the east of Gadir, up toward the edge of the water of the sea. And it goes on until it draws near to the west of Phadeg, and it returns towards Aphreg. And it goes on toward returns towards Aphreg, and it goes on toward the east, toward the water of the Maat Sea, and it goes on toward the side of the Tinah river, toward the northeast and east until it approaches the end of its waters, toward Mount Rapha, and it goes around to the north, This is the land which came to Joppa and to his sons, as the portion of his inheritance which he will possess for himself, and for his sons, for their generations forever. The 5 great islands, and a great land in the north. But it is cold, and the land of Ham is hot. But the land of Shem is not hot or cold, because it is mixed with cold and heat. And Ham divided his land among his sons, and the first portion was assigned to Cush toward the east, and west of him for Misraim, and west of him for Put, and west of him for Canaan, and towards his west was the sea. And Shem also divided among his sons, and the first portion was assigned to Elam and his sons toward the east of the Tigris River, until it approaches the east of all the land of India, along the Red Sea on its shore, the waters of Dedan, and all of the mountains of Mebri and Elam, and all the land of Susa, and everything which is beside Farnak, as far as the Red Sea, and up to the Tina River. And also to Ashur was assigned the second portion, and all of the land of Ashur, and Nineveh, and Shinar, as far as the vicinity of India, and then it goes up and skirts the river. And to Arphaxad was assigned the third portion, and of all the land of the region of Chaldea toward the east of the Euphrates, which is near the Red Sea, and all of the waters of the desert, as far as the vicinity of the tongue of the sea which faces toward Egypt, all of the land of Lebanon and Sinir, and Ammana as far as the vicinity of the Euphrates. And to Aram the fourth portion was assigned, all of the land of Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and the Euphrates, towards the north of the Chaldeans, up to the vicinity of Mount Ashur and the land of Arara. And to Lud the fifth portion was assigned, Mount Ashur and everything pertaining to it, until it approaches the great sea, and it draws near toward the east of Ashur his brother. And Japheth also divided the land of his inheritance between his sons, and the first portion was assigned to Gomer, toward the east from the north, side up toward the river Tina, and in the north to Magog, and was assigned all of the inner parts of the north until it approaches toward the sea of Me'at. And to Madai his portion was assigned, that he should take from the west of his 2 brothers as far as the islands, and up to the coasts of the islands. And to Javan the fourth portion was assigned, every island, and the islands which are towards the side of Lud. And to Tubal the fifth portion was assigned, in the midst of the tongue which draws near toward the side of Lud's portion, as far as the second tongue, into the region beyond the second tongue, into the third tongue. And to Meshech the sixth portion was assigned, 4 great islands in the midst of the sea, which approaches the portion of Ham. And the islands of Kamaturi were assigned by lot to the sons of Arphaxad as an inheritance for him. And thus the sons of Noah divided for their children before Noah their father, and he made them all swear an oath to curse each and every one who desired to seize a portion which did not come in his lot. And they all said, So be it, and so let it be to them and to their sons forever in their generations, until the day of judgment, in which the Lord God will judge them with a sword and with fire, on account of all the evil of the pollution of their errors, which have filled the earth, with sin and pollution and fornication and transgression. In the 3rd week of that Jubilee, the polluted demons began to lead astray the children of Noah's son, and to lead them to folly, and to destroy them. And the sons of Noah came to Noah, their father, and they told him about the demons who were leading astray, and blinding and killing his grandchildren. And he prayed before the Lord his God, and he said, God of the spirits which are in all flesh, who has acted mercifully with me, and saved me and my sons from the water of the flood, and did not let me perish as you did the children of perdition. Because great was your grace upon me, and great was your mercy upon my soul. Let your grace be lifted up upon my sons, and do not let the evil spirits rule over them, lest they destroy them from the earth. But bless me and my sons, and let us grow and increase and fill the earth. And you know that which your watchers, the fathers of these spirits, let 9 parts go down into the place of judgment. And he told one of us to teach Noah all of their